Right-wing media outlets like to tell us that Americans are threatened by illegal immigrants and Al-Qaeda, but according to research, American citizens are far more likely to be killed by a right-wing extremist right here on our own soil. Joining me now to talk about this is Howard Nations. Howard, it seems like the Department of Justice and Homeland Security and all the national and international police could really help themselves by going ahead and calling a terrorist, when they're a terrorist, go ahead and calling them a terrorist. There's things that attach to being a terrorist. First of all, the agency, the police, the military, they're able to invoke rendition, right, where that person can be grabbed, put away, no lawyer. They can be put into Gitmo, for God's sakes. They're able to say, we're not going to completely follow all the search and seizure laws. So they could use domestic terrorism as a better tool to get some of these right-wing fools, these crazies, off the street. Talk about this story. Why do we call a guy that's got a turban on his head, we call him, he's a terrorist, but a guy out at Bundy Ranch has got a cowboy hat on his head? No, he's just a peaceful activist.
Well, Mike, if you start with the definition of terrorism as violence against innocent citizens that's designed to advance a political cause, then we have two types at least of domestic homegrown terrorists in America. You have the Muslim American terrorists who seek to influence American foreign policy, but then we also have, as you said, the far right-wing American terrorists who are seeking to influence domestic policy and foment change in the ethnic makeup of the country through immigration and defend their perceived racial supremacy. Here's a fact for you, Mike. We are much more likely to be murdered by a far right-wing terrorist than a Muslim American terrorist. But yet the term terrorist applies exclusively by the press and by politicians to the Muslim Americans in the U.S.
I think an analysis that was done by, and I think this is what you're talking from, this article that was done by C.J. Werleman on Alternet. I interviewed Werleman a while back, is a brilliant analysis, and that is how we have gotten to the point to where we're afraid to say that some KKK type that has an AK-47 and shoots up a bunch of African Americans or Hispanics because he wants to make a political statement. We are so terrified to go ahead and call them what they are, and that is a domestic terrorist. And the thing is, if we do that, we're able to do a lot more things with that guy. We're able to invoke rendition. We're able to put him in Gitmo. We're able to waterboard him, I suppose. We're able to find out a lot of things if we would just go ahead and have enough courage to say, no, they're no different from an Al-Qaeda terrorist. They're killing American citizens, and we ought to be able to do something about that.
Well, far right-wing terrorists in this country, in a period of time from 1990 to 2010, there were 145 acts of political violence that resulted in 348 deaths. In the same period of time, American Muslim violence resulted in 20 deaths. The problem is the focus of the government officials and the American media is on the American Muslim violence, and they're virtually ignoring, to our detriment, the far right-wing violence against minorities. And you're absolutely right. They're giving away all the tools of the Patriot Act and all the things that could be done if they would designate the far right-wing terrorists who are doing much more damage to us than the Muslim American terrorists as terrorists.
I mean, it would be great if I'm a police officer and I'm dealing with something that I have the protection of handling this individual as a terrorist. By definition, as I say, there are certain rights that law enforcement has dealing with a terrorist that they don't with a non-terrorist. Something, as I say, like rendition, something like being able to say, well, you don't have an immediate right to a lawyer, something where you can say you don't have immediate right to proclaim that search and seizure has been violated. There's all kinds of no speedy trial rule. So if all they have to do is they have to take people like the cat that shot George Tiller,
Right.
the abortion doctor, or
Right.
the Tim McVeigh who killed all those people, blew up a federal building. They could have arrested everybody around Tim McVeigh as a terrorist. They could have invoked the same rights that they do at Gitmo and handled them as terrorists, and probably cleaned up an entire cell of domestic terrorists, couldn't they?
Yes, the fellow who shot Dr. Tiller was a member of the Sovereign Citizens and the Neo-Confederates, the people that deny the power of the federal government. And they're so out of control now that they actually did a reenactment of the murder of Tiller on the 5th anniversary of his death. But yet they're just forging right ahead with it. In Kansas City Jewish Center, 3 people were killed, a 14-year-old boy and his grandfather, by Frazier Glenn Cross. He was a founder of the KKK Carolina Knights, the White Patriot Party. Nothing there to look into. He shouted "Heil Hitler" when he was taken into custody. Now the question is, would the coverage on him have been any different by the media if he had yelled "Allah Akbar" instead of "Heil Hitler"?
That's what Whirlman talks about in his article. Yeah. It's just how we characterize it. Whirlman says we're so quick. Like I said, if this fella's got if he's got head dressing and he has dark skin, they're going to be handled differently. And all I'm suggesting is, why not use the Patriot Act as a tool right here in the United States? Why is it that we couldn't go on the Bundy Ranch, put them all in a paddy wagon, take them off, rendition, no lawyer, no search and seizure issues, no speedy trial. And if you were able to interrogate every one of those right-wing nuts, you'd have the ability to find out what's going on throughout the country. You wouldn't have another Tim McVeigh bombing. You wouldn't have people trying to, blow up abortion clinics, because we would know all the details about who they are. What is the difference here, and why won't the Justice Department use it the same way that they use it against an Arab terrorist?
Well, because of the right wing. Because what happens, look at Bundy, for example. He was extolled as a hero of the right wing. He was on the talk shows. He was a big hero until he got even too racist, even for the right wing, and they had to drop him all of a sudden. But this is a real problem, Mike. The Southern Poverty Law Center, which is run by a great trial lawyer, our friend Morris Dees, says that there are 939 hate groups in America that are neo-Nazis, Klansmen, white nationalists, neo-Confederates, the skinheads, border vigilantes. But since 2000, hate groups have increased by 56%. They're fueled by anger, they're fueled by the economy because they're in the low income brackets. They're worried about the influx of non-white immigrants, the diminishing white majority. They were fired up considerably by the election of our first African-American president. Patriot groups, and I hate the fact that they've co-opted the word patriot. Patriot groups and armed militia increased from 149 before Obama was president to 1,360 during his first term. They went from 149 to 1,360 during his first term. So, no, there's no racism there.
Howard, these statistics you're using again, C.J. Whirlman in his article, I know that you read it and I've read it, Homegrown Terrorists, it's all laid out in there. And what you'll conclude when you read that article is the government is losing a very important way to deal with these people, and that's to use the same force and effect of the Patriot Act on them as we do with any other terrorist. These are domestic terrorists. Harry Reid was smart enough to call them that. Unfortunately, most Democrats are so damned afraid of their shadow that they won't repeat it again and again, but it's the truth. Howard Nations, thank you for joining us, okay?